while you're listening to this, there are a lot of things to think about in preparing for the audition, in executing the audition properly, and feeling like you did a good job. I think that one of the things I like to think about in my preparation is that when I perform these excerpts, I want to think of them as sort of maybe I'll play 5 excerpts in a round, 5 or 6 maybe. I want to think of that as like a little suite, a composition, right, of unaccompanied pieces, because I'm not playing them in the orchestra at that point. And so, some people say play every excerpt the way you're going to play it in the orchestra, and I think there are a lot of merits to that line of thinking. But for me, I feel like I am sort of my own music director. I'm the conductor, I'm the staging director, I'm all these things, and I have the responsibility for all of the everything that happens on that stage when I'm performing. So maybe we have 5, probably 4 loud excerpts and one soft one to see if we can play that. And so I feel like one of the things that people do that gets them into trouble is they don't show enough variety of character. Usually a committee has thought pretty hard about what pieces they choose for each round, and they want to see a variety of things from the high and low, loud and soft, articulated and legato, some expression musically. A lot of the bass trombone excerpts aren't particularly expressive musically, right? Maybe you'll play the Bach sarabande, and maybe the Rhenish is somewhat expressive, but a lot of things are pretty chunky, blocky, and probably 95% of the notes you'll be playing are at fortissimo or louder, as according to the score. And so you have to really show a variety of approaches, musical maturity that I think any committee would really love to see or to hear. And so, if I've got to play Fountains and The Ride and Ein Heldenleben and, Rheingold or whatever, these have to have different feelings to them, because otherwise they all sound like one very similar sound. And I don't think anybody's going to be very compelled by a candidate that's playing things kind of all with the same loud sound. I think brass players often kind of go to the muscular loud sound, and I think that especially in an audition, you don't have any obligation to get that loud unless they ask you to. So I usually, I give them, I'll show a few notes here and there that show that I have, all the tools in the arsenal, both at the loud and the soft dynamics, but also that I try to give as much variety within that as possible. And that just comes from lots of listening, not only to recordings of things, really good recordings, and to listening live to hear what the dynamic range of a true orchestra is, or in a recital of, to listen to hear how loud, do players play and how soft do they really play. But everything you play should sound completely controlled. My goal was always to relax the committee, to make them feel comfortable, and to do something interesting, right? So to do those things both in hand in hand requires a little bit of strategy and approach to the excerpts. So if you see some excerpts there that you really feel like this is my bag, I can play Rheingold or Fountains, and this is like, I can take chances on this one, I can do something special, then feel free to take a little bit of liberty there. Try to find your maximum you with that. And then there are other excerpts. I'm certain that many of us probably think something like, I don't know, the William Tell, maybe the Creation, Till, some of these very awkward excerpts that are difficult to get from the beginning to the end without missing something. just play a good representative, wholesome version of this that's going to sound good, but isn't going to be something that you're trying to do something that's kind of a high risk, low reward. So just sound like a good bass trombone player or tenor or whatever on the ones that are going to be more difficult for you, and then really give them something to think about, and the more ones that you feel like you can take some chances. So that does not mean see how loud you can play, and still maintain control. I want them to think, oh, this guy could play so much louder or so much softer or so much slower than this, and I don't need to worry about it. Maybe a couple of other pieces of advice about approach to how I would play excerpts in the audition. I try not to pick the slowest possible tempo of slow excerpts. The Tannhäuser, Brian Gold excerpts, pretty much all of them. A lot of the Brahms movements or Schumann. If you're playing any of these really slowly and trying to really show how beautifully you can play, you'll end up having to breathe way more often. And then also the committee will be listening, and they really only hear intervals at that point. They don't really hear much of a phrase, and it's much more difficult. I hear a lot of very, very slow Bach sarabands that are just hard to listen to because it exaggerates or it highlights all of the problems in people's playing. Another thing to think about in your audition journey is that every audition is sort of a project that we take on for ourselves, and it makes us better. It gives us a real hard set goal, and if I'm not feeling like, if I'm a student and I'm taking my first or second audition and I'm not feeling like I'm not gonna be competitive, you put yourself in a real disadvantage. So what I like to do is just a little bit go with blinders on and just gonna go do the best I can. And as I get closer to the audition, there are things in my playing that aren't perfect, and still today there are things in my playing that are not perfect. And so if I had waited until I got everything right, then I'd still be in school. I was in school for definitely long enough. So I recommend to play with what you have in your playing, to highlight the things that you're really good at, to minimize anything that you're going to be having some troubles or struggles with, and prepare for this one. And then, if you win, doesn't mean you're perfect. It just means that now somebody thought you were the best one there, and that's really that's all you can do. One thing I tell my students that feel very frustrated about the auditions, maybe they advanced to semifinals, but they didn't get any farther. I said, nobody advances by accident. You have to have more than 50% of a committee voting yes, say, I would like this person in our orchestra for you to advance. And so that's a huge hurdle to get past. Once you start advancing in auditions, then you keep tweaking your playing, and it's going to be all about refinement and control and consistency and projecting a refined, beautiful musical idea. I liked to have before my last auditions, I'd like to have everything ready to go 3 weeks in advance, so that I can really switch my brain towards performing the excerpts and not really working on them anymore. Because of course you could keep working on them, but at some point you need to learn how to go from playing Brahms 1 to the Berlioz Romeo and Juliet to to whatever excerpt it might be, that are very different, and you want to get it right the first time. It's a skill of performing a bunch of excerpts that are different than each other in a row, that you have to spend time doing. So 3 weeks in advance, I've turned my brain a little bit into running the excerpts and playing healthy repertoire. And I try not to blow down the walls with the excerpts, play them mezzo, not so fortissimo, and so that I can practice for longer, and also that I keep myself in a good, healthy place with my sound. I keep the physicality down in my playing as much as possible, and that will allow the air to flow freely. It will allow my chops to last longer, and for me to keep a good, the best quality sound in my head as I can, because that's where it all starts. It starts with the clarity of your vision of your sound in your head, and then your body tries to replicate that in real life. So, and play for as many people as you can. Right, that's my last bit of advice. I think before I took the Atlanta audition, when I was in New World Symphony, I think I probably played 15 mock auditions in the last month. And when I got onto stage, it was like no big deal when I got there. And it was a big deal, but it didn't feel like an overwhelmingly big deal, which is usually what happens. So, just keep working hard and keep learning, and you'll be an inspiration to the next generation of trombonists out there, which we all need to hear too. So, good luck out there, and thanks for listening.